In order to marry Klaus, Haley literally turned into a fish. A heartbroken Jeff simply left. But their marriage was extremely turbulent. Despite this, they had many children. Jeff completely broke down. It turned out, 2 days earlier, Haley had helped Klaus register for citizenship. Unexpectedly, he was ordered to be deported. Klaus had no choice but to go home, pack, and return to Germany. But surprisingly, Haley had a solution. She promptly divorced Jeff, and then married Klaus. Klaus warned that if discovered, both of them would be deported. Sure enough, immigration officials soon came to investigate. As expected, they were found out. Just as Klaus was packing his bags, Haley turned herself into a fish. That made their marriage seem perfectly normal. To prove their domestic harmony, they even had a whole bunch of children. To make it more believable, they decided to buy a large fish tank, but they ended up arguing over the style of the tank. Unexpectedly, the immigration officers were right there. Their arguing actually helped get their citizenship approved. But then, surprisingly, an immigration officer used seduction, which led Klaus to confess the truth about their fake marriage. Klaus was then arrested, and even Haley faced deportation. Afterward, they ended up in Mexico. Klaus loved life there, but Haley couldn't stand it. They had to sneak back into the US. Right after, they were robbed and thrown out of a window. In such a desperate situation, Klaus and Haley finally forgave each other. Suddenly, Klaus was carried off by a scorpion. Then, a car pulled up in front of them. They were saved. To earn money by finding a prostitute, Steve would do any job, completely disregarding his own safety.
Here's $4.
You said 20.
There's gonna be a pizza party.
He then helped test a groin fat burning cream. The pain was utterly unbearable for him. He could earn $10 just by being stared at for an hour. Next was an endurance experiment. Steve was continuously subjected to electric shocks. It turned out that 2 days earlier, Steve and the others had wanted to hire a prostitute, but their savings had significantly dwindled. The reason was that Steve had bought a limited edition backpack.
It's made from the scrotum of a duck.
Everyone decided to participate in an experiment to make money. They then arrived at the gym to wait. Unexpectedly, it was Roger's experiment, a prison experiment. Roger wanted to see what would happen if prisoners and guards lived together. Then Steve and the others started bullying the guards. Unexpectedly, the next day, the people playing the guards didn't show up, so Roger hired all criminals. Unexpectedly, these prisoners were completely unafraid of them. They then threw all of them out, and even locked them in the bathroom. They planned to keep Steve and the others confined indefinitely. To get some food for Barry, everyone decided to resist the prisoners. However, Steve pretended not to see it. Unexpectedly, because of this, Steve was treated as their lackey. Then Steve started cooking for them. After the prisoners finished eating, the leftovers were given to his friends. Just as everyone was bored in the cell, suddenly, Steve's screams of pain were heard. They decided to check it out. Unexpectedly, Steve was just playing around with the prisoners. Then everyone condemned Steve's behavior. The next day, Steve accidentally knocked over a jar of olives. Unexpectedly, the olives fell directly through the sewer and ended up outside. Seeing this, Steve decided to escape on his own. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find a way out. Finally, he made it out. Unexpectedly, everything was part of Roger's experiment. Even the criminals were people who had already been released and reformed. Because Steve had abandoned his friends, his payment was very little. To help his friends afford a prostitute, he had to take on more work. Just as he was about to test the highest pain tolerance experiment, suddenly, his friends' voices were heard. It turned out they had seen everything. They forgave Steve. Due to Stan's father's prison escape, he was shot and killed by the police. Stan began singing daily to cope with his grief. To save Stan, the family summoned the medium Roger. Unexpectedly, they successfully summoned Jack's spirit back. Upon seeing Stan's outfit, Jack started cursing at him, even mocking Stan for crying. Then the family tried to drive Jack away. Francine even used a broom to chase him out. Unexpectedly, the house had a spiritual barrier, and Jack couldn't leave at all. So Jack had no choice but to stay at home. He could go anywhere at any time, even adding a personal massager to Francine's shopping cart, then insulting Steve. To get rid of Jack, Roger suggested they perform an exorcism ritual, but they couldn't find the ritual incantation no matter how hard they searched. Unexpectedly, Jack overheard everything. It turned out he also hated his current state, and he knew a spell. Then, following Jack's instructions, everyone performed the ritual. The next moment, Jack truly disappeared. But in reality, Jack had taken over Steve's body. Then Steve started behaving very strangely, even bringing an escort to live at home, and demonstrating to classmates how to kill someone with a pencil. Stan came to pick up Steve, but unexpectedly, Steve insisted on driving himself. Even while driving, he kept mocking Stan non-stop. The familiar taunts made Stan suspicious.
What's the name of your goblin character in your little dragons game?
Puerto Rican Charlie.
Dead!
And then Jack was exposed. He directly kicked Stan out of the car. Stan hurried back home and went to Steve's room, only to find it filled with blueprints of the museum. At that moment, Jack was indeed at the museum. Using his experience, he smoothly avoided various dangers. Unexpectedly, he was there to find the best-tasting lemon iced tea in history. Meanwhile, Stan caught up to him. Jack continued to belittle Stan incessantly. However, Stan expressed his guilt towards Steve, which filled Steve with confidence. Steve directly climbed out of the cage imprisoning him and expelled Jack's soul from his body. The group quickly escaped through the window Roger had broken. Yet, Jack still couldn't leave through the door.